Okay, good morning. I'd like to call to order the Finance and Economic Development Committee and the fiscal year 2026-2027 departmental budget reviews. Let the record reflect that all members are present. On the schedule today, I'll go through some ground rules for the budget proceedings, which are the same procedures we use every year. Next, we'll accept any public testimony and then hear from the mayor. After that, we'll begin reviewing the budget details, starting with the Office of the Mayor, followed by a presentation from the administration on revenue forecasting. And we'll conclude today with a review of the budget for the Department of Human Resources and the March 15 vacancy report. For council members, here are the ground rules for the budget. We have a quick PowerPoint presentation. So the following is a summary of the budget procedures. For more details, please refer to the Budget Expectations Memorandum dated February 6, 2026. The departmental budget reviews will follow the written schedule. If a department's review concludes before its allotted end time, the next scheduled review will begin immediately. This minimizes scheduled budget callbacks. Prior to each departmental review, please review all materials and prepare any questions. Please contact Council Services budget staff to send questions to the administration in advance, especially questions unlikely to be answerable on the spot without prior notice. For example, questions that will require research or time to compile. This will help limit the number of written follow-up questions. All questions must directly relate to the proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. The administration has been asked to be prepared with key personnel to answer questions. Council questioning will commence after the respective department has finished its presentation. During all budget proceedings, the council rules will continue to be enforced, including the rule number 6F regarding council members speaking. Decision making is scheduled for Thursday, May 14, 2026, and Friday, May 15, 2026, if needed. Council Services budget staff will meet with each council member between April 20th through May 1st to discuss decision-making proposals. Any proposal to add to the budget should identify the source used to account for the increase. Four votes to reduce or remove, 5 votes to increase or add. Decisions will be made department by department. The committee will then consider any revenue proposals thereafter, if applicable. The committee will not revisit items after they've been addressed unless deemed absolutely necessary. So it's the same rules as last year. Okay, and moving on. Each day during the budget proceedings, we'll take public testimony at the beginning of the meeting at 9 o'clock a.m. Is there anyone in the public wishing to testify this morning? None. Okay, moving on. With our schedule, I'd like to suspend the rules and call upon the mayor to offer his introductory comments, followed by the administration's budget team to present their fiscal year 2026-2027 budget overview. I'll ask the members to please hold off on any questions until he's complete with what he has to say. Do we need a quick recess? We need a recess. We'll recess real quickly. Okay, welcome back. Mayor, you have the floor.
For the record, Derek Kawakami, Mayor, County of Kauai. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Council, Council Services, and to the general public at large. I just want to begin by saying it's been an honor and a privilege and to be able to work with you, but to get to this point where we are delivering our last and final budget message. It's been a great run, and I have to thank this council for the hard work that you folks have done working out in communities, giving us feedback, and making sure the wheels of democracy are well-oiled and well-turning. We brought our department heads today, and they're all prepared to answer whatever questions you may have, and so with that, I'd like to begin. Aloha Chair Raposo and Council members. Today, we're presenting our proposed budget for fiscal year 2027. This budget reflects our continued commitment to fiscal discipline, to responsible planning, and to delivering the services our community depends on. We are proposing a $365 million operating budget and a $139 million capital improvement budget. Our total revenues are projected at approximately $398 million, a modest increase from last year. Importantly, we are not proposing any changes to real property tax rates. Property tax revenue continues to be generated primarily by non-residents. The growth we are seeing is driven primarily by property values, not changes in tax policy. Other revenues like excise tax, wastewater fees are increasing slightly to better reflect actual collections. All other revenue sources remain relatively flat compared to last year. Overall, our revenue picture remains stable and predictable. This year, our focus is clear. Support our workforce, maintain and improve infrastructure, and follow through on the projects already underway. Our employees remain at the center of everything we do. They are the ones maintaining our roads, responding to emergencies, and providing essential service every day. The budget continues to invest in that workforce while keeping growth measured and responsible. We are continuing major investments in infrastructure. Through the GET Fund, we are dedicating over $36 million to road resurfacing and bridge improvements across the island. We're also replacing aging equipment, including fire apparatus and refuse trucks, to improve reliability and reduce long-term maintenance costs. At the same time, we're making targeted upgrades to our systems to better support our frontline crews. Just as important as where we invest is where we reduce costs. For the first time in this administration, we're seeing a decrease in insurance premiums. This is the result of updating outdated property valuations and taking a more proactive approach. And I just want to say this again. For the first time in this administration, we're seeing a decrease in insurance premiums, which is a huge thing considering the insurance market that we live in today. We've also reduced debt service costs by refinancing at more favorable rates. These efforts strengthen our financial position without placing additional burden on our residents. Our capital improvement program continues to focus on progress. Nearly 3/4 of our funding is dedicated to projects already underway. This puts us in a better position to continue the work that we've already started. We're continuing in wastewater infrastructure, parks and recreation, stadium improvements, and public safety facilities across the island. From Vidina Stadium to Hanapepe Stadium to improvements at our transfer stations and treatment facilities, these projects directly impact our communities. We're also improving county facilities to better serve both our employees and the public. This includes additional wastewater system upgrades to support long-term infrastructure needs, as well as an inclusive playground in Lihue. Housing remains a priority. We've allocated $15.8 million to support affordable housing initiatives. This continues our commitment that visitor-related tax increases directly benefit local housing. This budget carries added responsibility. Only about 5 months of it will be under our administration. So we approached it with discipline to complete what we've started, avoid leaving unfinished commitments, and provide a stable path forward. This budget is designed to set the next administration up for success. We made a deliberate decision not to introduce new initiatives that would create additional burdens, and instead focus on finishing what we've started and ensuring the next administration can step in and hit the ground running. To the Council, mahalo for your partnership. Your collaboration and thoughtful deliberation have helped move this county forward. This budget provides a strong, stable foundation and the flexibility for the next administration to continue serving our community with confidence, strength, and clarity. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for that. Were you guys going to do a overall budget overview also presentation, Ken? Does anybody have any questions for the mayor based on what he just said? Or if not, we can
just say thank you. Thank you very much.
we'll go through the budget overview also, and Mayor, if you want to sit up here too, and then after that, if there's any questions on those, then we can ask them. Oh, Councilmember Kuli'i.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know you thank the council, but we thank you also. It's been a pleasure working with you. I really appreciate your overview, and this 3 pages have been very concise, sharing all the highlights and numbers. One thing that sort of caught my eye is you talked about how all the unions have settled and the increases are reflected, but except for bargaining unit 11 and 15. I don't know if negotiations are still underway, but I think it might be good to have a sense of what kind of expenses you're expecting for that or forecasting for that, and whether it's sort of like in line with what you expected or is it unusual. And we can do that offline if it makes more sense, so follow up. And then the only other thing, and it might be a question later for HR, but I think on the 3 new positions mentioned here in your narrative, the one position for HR with the Department of Water, I think it's 0 funded, not dollar funded, and the reason is because the funds will come from the Department of Water, but in the narrative it just says you're going to be, almost like you're going to be requesting that. So has there been any discussions with Water already, and do we anticipate that they are willing to move in that direction with us so that we can complete the whole payroll being centralized in HR?
You want me to follow up with that offline, or, I mean, we can bring up HR?
HR is presenting today too, so we can ask them that question.
That's right. Okay. And maybe the last thing, it's kind of a big thing. It just came up in our council meeting yesterday, and I'll add it to the proviso that you have here. You share with us that Section 8 related to council approvals for unbudgeted equipment was increased from $25,000 to $50,000, and then that just in keeping in line with what the law changed at the legislature. So this is more a matter of housekeeping that you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and as the departments go up, they'll have a much more comprehensive answer. I can give you a broad view, but I think it's best to bring the subject matter experts to dive into the details of that. But everybody's here taking notes, so
and then just on a broader sense, this council will likely consider a proviso, because it came to our realization, I guess, as a body, that with regards to the Housing Development Fund, which is amazing, and we appreciate that year after year you increase the investment there, but that, in fact, then when the administration goes and purchases a property, there's no, like a money bill normally would come back to the council for such a big expenditure of county funds. But the consideration will probably be to put a mechanism in there so that such a big purchase would also come back to, and there's, I mean, I guess there's different ways of doing it, but just wanted to know your thoughts on that. I mean, you've been a council member before as well.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, when it comes to land acquisition and housing, time is money. We see cost escalations going up by the day. Having flexibility is a good tool. I would say that the next administration is going to have to deal more with the changes that you make here. But what we present to you is what we feel is the best path forward. But we respect the council's decision collectively and their wisdom on moving forward. Every decision we make has unintended consequences. That's not to say trying something new doesn't have its merit, but in regards to housing and the complexities behind it, when land becomes available and how quickly we have to maneuver to stay competitive, what we present to you is what we feel is the best slew of tools for the housing agency to get housing for people.
Thank you. And I must say we don't support the land purchase. Of course, we do. The item moved forward in the meeting on Wednesday. Thank you.
Any other questions from the members on the mayor's presentation? Okay, if not, Ken, you got the floor.
Hello, Committee Chair Kaneshiro, members of the committee, Ken Shimonishi, Budget Administrator. So every year we do a overview, not just for council members, but obviously for the public as well. So people can kind of get a better feel on how the revenues are generated, all the appropriations are made, and so forth. With that, we'll start with the budget overview, and you have the presentation slides in front of you. So on page 2, again, I will just go over that we continue to adhere to the elements of long-term financial planning. This includes a structurally balanced budget approach where recurring expenditures should be covered by recurring revenues. The use of fund balances are based on estimates at this time. We have not used any general fund balance to balance the budget. I guess I should be doing this. On slide 3, this is a table by the operating funds, fiscal year 26 and the current proposed mayor's request fiscal year 27. In total, as the mayor mentioned, revenues increased by $25.5 million or 6.9%. On page 4, we have the narrative further explaining that revenue change. General fund increased by $22.6 million or 7.9%, primarily attributable to rural property tax, an increase of $20.8 million or 8.6%. County transit accommodations tax increase of $1.1 million, which also now includes budgeting a little bit for penalty and interest. So the total 1.1 increase in that is 3.6% as compared to last year. And our interest earned increased by $855,000 or 17.8%. We're applying a roughly 30% rule of what was actual in the most recent fiscal year 25. So that's kind of something that we're trying to get to. Highway fund remained relatively flat with an increase of $190,000 or 1%. GE tax fund increased by $2.4 million or 6.2%. Solid waste, we actually had a decrease of $643,000 or 5.8%, and this is primarily due to a reduction in the interest earned applying that rule. So that came out to almost an $800,000 increase. Sewer fund increased by $642,000 or 5.3%, and this is based on the most recent 6 months data that we have. Looking at our operating budget expenditures by category, overall, an increase of $17.9 million roughly, or 5.2%. And in these categories, you'll see the various changes and also the percentages, amounts. Again, the narrative for the table begins on page 6. Salaries and related increased by $12.1 million, or 6.3%. Regular salaries increased by $7.5 million, or 7.6%. Health fund contribution increased by $3.1 million, or 22%. Collective bargaining increased by $647,000, or 43.8%, and Social Security increased by $465,000, or 7.5%. The areas of note include an increase of 19% in liquor, 12.7% in human resources. An increase of planning, an increase of 19%, liquor, an increase of 12.7%, human resources, 11.4%, finance, 9%, housing, 8.6%, and police, 7.4%. Utilities remain relatively flat with just a $47,000 increase, or 0.7%, and our operations overall increased by $4.5 million, or 5.6%. And then again, the insurance decreased by $518,000, or 11.4%, as the mayor pointed out earlier. Other services increased by $1.2 million, or 2%, $451,000 in police, $311,000 in public works solid waste, $273,000 in the county clerk, $207,000 in planning, $181,000 in elderly, $150,000 in the county auditor, offset by reductions of $160,000 in prosecuting attorney and $150,000 in public works highway. Continuing on with the narrative on page 7, dues and subscriptions increased by $1.4 million, or 24.5%. $1.3 million of that in finance, $80,000 in the county clerk, $67,000 in human resources, offset by reductions of $80,000 in fire and $13,000 in liquor. Consultant services increased by $2.3 million, or 37.4%. $2.4 million in finance, $33,000 in public works solid waste, offset by reductions of $80,000 in public works wastewater and $50,000 in police. Our special projects decreased by $330,000, or 6.2%. $380,000 of that was in the fire department, $50,000 in Parks General Fund, offset by an $89,000 increase in finance. Grant in aid decrease. Yep.
Your special project, you're showing a total of 330,000.
I'm sorry. Where are you?
Special projects that you just said a total of 330,000.
Right.
But you said of that 380,000 is fire.
Correct. So fire
cannot be.
There's an offset with finance, $98,000 increase.
Yeah. So on that particular item, last year fire had an alerting system for the stations, and that was non-recurring. So we saw that large reduction, but offsetting that reduction was an increase of $98,000 in finance.
Okay, okay. Maybe I just misheard. I thought I heard you say special projects total was 330, and of that 380 was fire.
The decrease was $330,000.
Yeah.
Fire's decrease was $380,000, but that $380,000 was also offset by an increase in the finance department.
Okay, got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as I was saying, granted aid decreased by $109,000, or 2.4%. $435,000 decrease in economic development, offset by $320,000 in prosecuting attorney. This was related to more of a switch in the grant that was previously assigned to economic development related to family violence and sexual assault, we actually moved that money over into prosecutors now. The rental category increased by 230,000 or 12.9%, 177,000 in public works solid waste, 31,000 in public works highway, and 19,000 in police. Continuing on page 8, again, with operations, our advertising increased by 233,000 or 66.4%, 189,000 in police, and 36,000 in the mayor's office. Supplies showed a decrease of 205,000 or 4.4%, 279,000 decrease in public works solid waste, 19,000 decrease in parks general fund, offset by an increase of 47,000 in public works highway. Our road and bridge repairs remain unchanged from the last fiscal year at $36.3 million. Our lease decreased by 2.7 million or 27.2%. And this was another change from last year where we had leased the helicopter as well as larger ticket items primarily related to solid waste. We still have the lease in there, obviously, for the helicopter, but we've reverted back to outright purchasing or budgeting for outright purchasing of the larger pieces of equipment. So of that decrease, 1.7 million was related to finance, related to the ERP system. 400,000 decrease in public works highway, 334,000 public works solid waste, 289,000 in parks general fund, 97,000 in public works general fund, sorry, offset by 116,000 increase in fire. On slide or page 9, the auto equipment and heavy equipment increased 5.8 million, and this is the switch I talked about, or 82.2%, 3.3 million in fire, 1.8 million public works solid waste, 1.7 million public works wastewater, $325,000 parks general fund, offset by decreases of 553,000 public works highway, 150,000 decrease in transportation, and 101,000 decrease in police. Contribution to open space increased by 104,000, or an increase of 8.6%, and this is just based on the 0.5% of real property tax revenue. Debt service decreased by 2 million, or 18.9%, and then this is due to refinancing initiatives undertaken in 2025. So, again, although not related to, I wouldn't say not related, but we don't show this as part of the operating budget as an expenditure, but the contribution to affordable housing, which Vice Chair Cooley was talking about a potential proviso. So this year's contribution, if you look at the page, which is the second page of the operating budget ordinance, section 1, it's truncated for display purposes, but we're proposing to contribute 15,750,000, which is 6% of the real property taxes. The required minimum per our structurally balanced budget resolution is 2%, as well as the ordinance. The minimum is 2%, but we are proposing 6%. And this just shows that we're contributing from the general fund to the Housing Development Fund, and we take that contribution back from the Housing Development Fund into the general fund and then into our CIP ordinance. So the total being contributed into the CIP ordinance is 46.6 or 46.7 million roughly. Of that, 15.7 is the housing, affordable housing contribution. So looking at the CIP side of the equation, in the CIP ordinance in the general fund, on page 4 of the CIP ordinance, you will see that 15,750,000 being contributed, that blue shaded number. And at the time that we generated the ordinance, we were looking at the unencumbered balances as of February 19th. So in total, that housing fund, affordable housing fund, sits at about $41 million, or sat at about $41 million at that time. So I think this is a true testament to the administration and the council being on the same page and determining that, yes, we have to make this contribution to affordable housing. I think it's, yeah, unbelievable. Looking at our operating budget elements by category, just to show where the big pots of money are, obviously side by side, FY26 versus FY27 on page 12. You can see that our salaries and related went up a bit, 0.6% in terms of our total budget. The lease portion decreased by 0.9%. The auto and heavy equipment increased by 1.5%, excuse me. And then the debt service decreased by 0.7%. So some slight shifting of how the monies are appropriated, but nothing too crazy. On page 13, our overall budget by department. This would exclude the open space contribution and debt service. But again, we show that our public works department is the largest department. In FY26, it represented 33.6% of the appropriations, and in FY27, 32.8%. That's the blue shaded area where you see Public Works General Fund, Public Works Highway GET, Solid Waste, and Wastewater. The next largest department would be our police department at roughly 15.5%, followed by fire, a little over 15, around 15, Parks and Rec, and finance. On page 14, we focus in a little more on our general fund, being it is the largest fund, and compare how do we look last year versus this year in terms of our percentage of allocation or appropriation. So a slight decrease in the salaries and related category of 0.9%. A decrease in our lease, as I mentioned earlier, 1.1%, and then an increase in the equipment side of the house of 1.5%. Still looking at the general fund on page 15, we look at the salaries and related category. Obviously, that's the largest piece of the pie. And where does that split out to? And again, for our police and fire department, they represent roughly 55% of that bucket of dollars, followed by parks, finance, and public works. On page 16, I should say, the second largest fund we have is the GE tax surcharge fund. So what this shows is the historical and total historical appropriations of the GE tax surcharge fund, where roughly 75% is being appropriated towards public works and 25% being appropriated towards transportation. This is in line with my recollection as how the passage of the GE tax surcharge came and was presented to council of what the split would roughly be. Not to say it can't be changed, but I just wanted to point that out, that we continue on that line of appropriations when you consider overall the life of the fund thus far. On page 17, so looking at the transportation agency budget of county funds, I think it's important to see how we've, I guess, transitioned the funding starting in fiscal year 15, where 4.4 million was coming from general fund, and then 3 million roughly from highway fund. And as you look across the years, you can see that we've actually moved away from the general fund once we passed the GET fund. You know, I recall that part of the argument was, you know, GET is also, I think, a regressive tax, so we should try to benefit those people who are, you know, feeling it the most, and thus the transfer into funding transportation that way. And you can see in 19, 20, 21, 22, we still had a small portion of GET coming out, but in 23, that's all but disappeared. And now it's really primarily GET fund and highway fund. This doesn't count the state or federal grants that they also receive. But the reason why I put this slide in is that the GET surcharge is scheduled to sunset December 31st, 2030, I believe, which is not too far away. And thus, how would the county fund that portion should that surcharge no longer be available to the county? Other notable changes on page 18, which is our Finance and Real Property Collections Division, 0508, has been consolidated with Real Property Assessment, 0507. So you won't see that division anymore in the budget. We have consolidated the numbers on any of the worksheets, 3-year trend and whatnot, so you can see an apples-to-apples comparison. Proviso Section 8, as Councilmember Cooley mentioned, we did propose the increase as it was changed by the ledge in HRS Chapter 103D, that's 305, from 25,000 to 50,000. And then also Proviso Section 16, which allows the conversion of a full-time position to 2 part-time positions. We removed the consultation with exclusive representative language as we determined it was unnecessary and deters the use. It still requires an ordinance to change, for that change to occur, if the admin would ever propose that. So it would still come before the council. And then just some housekeeping. On page 19, if you look at your detailed worksheets, on the bottom you see a master page number. And the reason why we do this is because we insert several different files and reports, and you wouldn't get a clean consecutive page number sequence otherwise. So it might be helpful if council members refer to that page number during discussions, and the administration and the various departments have the same set of pages, so it'll be all in sync. And then finally, if you're looking at the budget ordinance in a soft copy, there should be bookmarks on the various departments and sections to help you navigate more closely to where we're reviewing. With that, mahalo, and any questions?
Okay, thank you for that presentation. It's always a great overview. I mean, you're able to sum up the entire budget pretty quickly. Do you have any questions from the members? Councilmember Cowden.
Yeah, I have a handful of simple questions. Maybe I'll do 2 first, and then we'll see if other people have questions. Then, okay, so
just note what page it's on.
page 4, when we're looking at the increase of 7.9%, we had attributable real property tax increase of 20.8 million, or 8.6%. So I'm curious if the increase is primarily due to inflationary pressure, or did we have new, on the housing values, or did we have any new developments so that when we got new property, we're gonna have more new, taxes that come up? So is it new houses, or do you have any idea, or did just the cost on everything go up?
Yeah, I think we have our real property tax people here to discuss in depth the real property side. I would say values, but I'm not sure how much of that actually relates to actual new parcels as well. But we have that more detail in.
They're presenting on revenues today also, and then
Okay.
based on what I saw, majority of it was based on increased assessed values.
That's what I figured. So an 8.6% increase is really pretty painful for a lot of people. So I'm just trying to be aware. But I know there's been new houses built, so whenever there's new built environment, that's going to also be increasing that amount. On the next page, which I wrote over, I think it's 5, where we have the operating budget elements by category. So when we see the 6.3% increase, and we're doing still yet 5% annual salary increase, right? We did that for a 3-year period, so it's natural that it's going up by at least 5%. Is that from that 3 years of a salary increase that we agreed on? Am I remembering right? Maybe not.
I'm not sure I can quantify that off the top of my head, but I would say if you took a rough guess of $100 million in salaries, every percentage point that we move is $1 million, right? So if we did settle our collective bargaining at 5%, 3%, then you're moving that much, you know.
So last year, we had this hazard mitigation pay for COVID. Did that get built into all the fiscal year 2026, or is any of that coming into 2027?
So all of that has occurred in prior years.
Okay, so that's gone.
Correct.
Okay. Do other
We
people-
do have one more coming up, but it's probably going to get passed in this fiscal period.
And that's the fire?
Yeah, the one we
Yeah.
just saw yesterday.
Yeah. And then, okay, so. Okay, on page 9, when we're talking about the leases and going back to purchasing the property, what was the lesson learned? Why did we shift back to purchasing? I remember when we moved towards predominantly leasing. So we must have had a reason that we decided it's not a good idea and we're going to buy the product. And I don't mind buying the vehicles, but do you know that? Or would that be a detailed question somewhere else?
I think the major factor is how we can balance the budget without financing if the revenue stream allows. And so in this case, clearly we could do that, which is a easier method of acquiring, and you know, it should save you money not paying interest on leasing, right?
Okay, so I was happy on that. I know on page 9, I just want to put a big smile on it. I'm really pleased at the refinancing initiatives, as well as how we have been investing. So again, want to just throw out that big applause to Finance and Treasury for doing a good job of managing money. And on page 17, when we're talking about the GET sunsetting, do we have a bill in the state legislature right now to revisit that? I thought that was something coming up, because that will be a really big problem, not just for our transportation, but also for our roads. That might be a mayor's question.
Yeah, every year we make the case to extend the general excise tax surcharge in perpetuity. The issue gets convoluted because it gets tied into rail. And But for the neighbor island counties, it is the best funding and source of revenue to fix roads, bridges, infrastructure, but more importantly, the amount of jobs that we've created with this general excise tax surcharge creates a multiplier effect in our community. If you're to ask any restaurant worker who tips the best, it's our blue collar workers that are out there building our roads. So that's the case that we make. That is the case that the next administration is going to have to make. And quite frankly, if I had a crystal ball, I believe it's going to come down to the wire in 2030 for a big push to preserve that source of funding. As far as this year, the appetite to revisit that didn't seem to be at the legislature's top priority list.
Okay, and when I look at all this horrific flooding that we have, my sense is, you know, the state's going to be pretty dry for us. We were so lucky that we might have a little bit of challenge. So I was hoping that was something that would have been passing already.
And on the flip side, because the legislature, and this kind of goes off, but it ties into the bigger financial stability of our county, the fact that the legislature scooped our appropriation of the TAT and then gave us sort of that TAT taxing authority, but made it nearly impossible for us to collect it with some of the language in the bill, and the fact that our former finance director and our current managing director was able to work with the other counties to triage the situation without the state putting their fingers on that money, makes it a lot harder for them to claw it back. So in a sense, we're safer, but the legislature can create laws to change all of that. So the reason why I say this is because future county councils and future administrations have to be aware of the history of how we got this funding and protect it. And for the general public who's watching this, especially for the many workers that depend on these type of infrastructure jobs to feed their families, there should be a level of concern that 2030 is right around the corner, and TAT, as stable as it may seem, can change in a blink of an eye, because that's how we lost it. Literally without no notice, without taking into any consideration that we partner up with the state in many, many situations. When we're rescuing hikers, state trails, it's a county helicopter and a county firefighter. When we create fields of opportunity for our high school student athletes, it's all being paid for by the hardworking people that are paying taxes to the county of Kauai. And so this is all an educational outreach to the public at large as well. And you bring up a good point. These are all sources of revenue that are critical to meet the expectations of our constituents, growing expectations, and it's going to have to be guarded and protected into the future.
Thank you for
We
that.
went through a budget not too long ago with no TAT. So we lost pretty much, we started 15 million in the hole in that budget.
And on the heels of coming out of COVID-19, when we were crippled.
In alignment with that, when we honored our people, and I just can't help but say thank you to all our fire department first responders for the tragedy that we had yesterday. Heroes again. When I look at the amount of money that we did for the COVID hazard pay, where am I going to see that in here? I haven't really, I mean, like that's coming out of our reserve. Is that where I would see that? Because we spent a lot last year on that hadn't been budgeted to begin with.
You're asking how the temporary hazard pay is being funded?
Yeah, so I learned that it got funded last year, so then it wasn't in last year's budget. So has that lowered our reserve?
Correct. We are taking the funding from the reserve. Until we get fiscal 25 audited numbers, we're using 24 and kind of try to roll it forward. But I would say our projections is that the reserve while maybe under the 30% target that we set for ourselves, it's not projected to be dramatically under, maybe like 28 and a half as opposed to 30.
Okay.
It still leaves a substantial amount in the on the reserve side of the house. And hopefully, again, with our balanced budget process, we recover that in the next year, right?
Thank you so much for that, because I was looking everywhere and I couldn't find it, so that's why I couldn't find it. Okay.
Council Chair Raposo?
Thank you, and thank you guys for being here today. My question, and Ken, I'm not sure if you can answer. I did hand a note over to our county attorney that he can get to me later, but maybe you can answer on the proviso section 8 regarding the increase of unbudgeted items from 25,000 to 50,000, which would require council approval. Right, that's what that proviso is lifting or raising the limit or the cost.
So that would allow the administration to purchase unbudgeted equipment of 50,000 or less
Without council approval.
without council approval.
Right, but I'm reading the statute, and I don't see anything in the statute that prohibits the council from keeping it at 25,000. But
Yeah.
that's what I sent over to Tyler. I'm reading the the statute is only about, it does talk about the 50,000, but it's more about, it's a prohibition against parceling. So in other words, chopping up large purchases into small ones so you can, get around the procurement. So this statute basically says you cannot do that. But I don't read anything in here where it says the council's authority, will be limited to only 50,000 or more. So that's the question I have. And I can wait for Tyler to get back to legal.
So, like I said, this was referred to us by our chief procurement officer or assistant chief procurement officer. But I would agree that doesn't stop council from saying, no,
Right.
we don't want you guys to have 50,000, maybe.
Yeah,
40,000
I think 25 is a safe number. And just the way it was written, it was kind of like to be in line with the statute, but I'm reading the statute and it doesn't say that the councils are restricted. So and I'll get the legal opinion from Tyler, but that is just my concern, to lift that higher. That's me personally, because I think the 25,000 is a safe number for both sides. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the members? Councilmember Holland, then Councilmember Carvalho.
Hi, thank you guys so much. So my question is a little bit, I guess it's just kind of an overall broader question about the timing. When this budget was finalized, we hadn't seen the massive increase in petrol costs that we're seeing due to the war in Iran. And I'm wondering, and I've been thinking a lot about what we can do on a county level to offset the possible impacts over the next year that we may see if this continues to go on for some period of time. And so I'm just wondering if there's some sort of thought going into already what we'll be looking at in the supplemental to offset maybe some of those concerns around what things are going to cost us, potential inflation associated with that. And also looking at, the things that I've been thinking a lot about over the last few weeks is we're so limited on how we can influence those things. Obviously, those larger global and national things that we can't really influence on this level. But we have seen, presentations from the food banks this year about how much they're struggling, and I can anticipate that we're going to see an increase to that as we continue to go into this. We've already seen in a 1 month gas go up $1 a gallon, and that's not projected to slow down at this point. So I'm wondering if we're looking at things to possibly offset some of those costs, but also, food banks, the fast tracking of energy security stuff around EVs or projects that we have that are prioritized around public transport and those kind of things that we can think about as how do we help our citizens cope with that adjustment. Food production obviously being another one that we saw during COVID really showed our weakness, and we really haven't invested over the last 5 years and obviously we can only do so much on a county level, but just thinking ahead on how we're supporting our farmers, how we're supporting food self-sufficiency and the food situation as well.
The economic uncertainty that every single county and city, state, municipality across this nation from sea to shining sea that has been thrown into with global conflict conflict is going to have a cascading effect that makes it hard to wrap our head around the cost escalation on everything and more that you just described. And just for people's knowledge, the cost of oil goes up. That increases the cost of asphalt. And will it make it cheaper to go concrete? We don't know because of the tremendous supply chain disruptions everywhere. That little New Malu bridge was stalled for a large part because they ran out of steel across the nation. They couldn't find steel. Part of the reason why the legislature increased the threshold from $25,000 to $50,000 is just the fact of the matter of what $25,000 could buy you yesterday compared to what $25,000 buy you today. So as far as mitigating factors, that's why we pump so much money into CIP and road projects, and that's why we stay focused on making sure that we are introducing a comprehensive budget that takes care of needs without getting too glitzy and glamorous and focusing on basics, which is infrastructure, housing, and cost of living. The fact that we were able to reshift the tax burden off of the shoulders of our people that live here and rebalance it to non-residents is, in my opinion, a huge accomplishment. But it's hard for our residents to feel that cost savings when the cost of milk, eggs, gasoline, and everything under the sun goes up as well. So until we get some sort of stability from higher up, we will continue to be challenged, but there's no loss of confidence that between this council, who's very fiscally responsible, and our administration, that we won't be able to pivot, shift, adjust our sails, and make lemonade out of lemons. The nonprofits are under severe duress. You know, we just had a report card from Hōʻike Community Foundation where they were begging their donors to consider unrestricted funding so that the nonprofit of HCF has the ability to pivot quickly, because they can see that beyond the horizon, the nonprofits that we lean on to be the safety net and parachute for our community are all going to be struggling moving forward. And we may see some huge budgetary impacts that's going to severely limit the type of services that we can continue to provide to our people that depend on it. And that's why I think everybody's holding their breath to see some sort of sanity happen way, way up above the level of decision-making that we make here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Carvalho?
More of a clarifying question. So the road and bridge repairs may not change from last year, 36.3 million?
So on that, all I'm saying is that we continue to budget the same amount as last year. So another 3 million. That's what we have in the budget currently.
Any other questions from the members on the presentation?
One quick one.
Councilmember Quilly.
And I may just need to ask this of HR later, but the proviso section 16 on the bottom of page 18, the change would be removing consultation with exclusive representatives language, and it said that it's unnecessary and deters use. So my question on this is, has it been worked out and agreed to by the different bargaining units? And you can follow up later, or HR can address it later.
I have one more.
Councilmember Cowden.
I appreciated the higher level conversation. Thank you, Councilmember Holland, for bringing up the global conflict and instability, you know, and how it affects farming and food. And as we have SNAP closing, I mean, a lot of our SNAP dollars are really going to continue to be restricted. I just want to speak to that fuel increase when and just to anybody listening, 75% of this revenue base is largely non-resident owners and resorts and TVRs. So during this window, we have really shifted to the non-residents helping to support things. I worry about the vulnerability of the visitor industry when we're likely to have higher fuel costs, higher everything, and those people at home are going to be paying less for food. So we don't have a magic ball to be the looking glass to be looking at, but my mind thinks that we might need to be able to be leaning on this reserve a little bit, because if we don't have the visitors, that's that TAT, and that's more likely that we would get a claw back on that. I think we're in tenuous times. We've certainly been a mayor through a number of tenuous times. So we'll get through it, but that is another element, and I don't know if, I mean, a lot of this has happened since the budget was written up, right? This is so immediate. But I think that airplane flights, I haven't tried to book a ticket since, but I imagine they've gone up. I haven't even really looked. Do you guys know?
Well, I'm not sure if it's going up or going down because they haven't paid TSA workers in a while and they're quitting.
Nobody wants to.
And it's causing a backlog of people waiting in line, missing flights. And so it's just it's a never-ending story. It's a never-ending challenge to be able to navigate. I will say, we should all count our lucky stars that Kauai was relatively unscathed with the two Kona low weather systems. When we get out to Maui, Big Island, and especially Oahu, those impacts are going to further cause some level of complications right down here on the little island of Kauai and Niihau. So we could raise a million questions of the uncertainty that we live in. But one thing that we feel confident and certain of is that this budget that we presented is responsible in regards to providing critical services, increasing housing, and you folks have done a fabulous job of making sure that we're being held accountable. And so as we go through this budget process, I can guarantee you that there will be things out of our control that will continue to ebb and flow on where we are financially.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the members? If not, thank you for that. Moving on.
Sorry, I had one quick one.
Okay, Councilmember Koli'i.
It's another kind of like the HR question. This one might be better asked of OED, but it was listed here regarding grant and aid. On page 7, the second to the last bullet, grant and aid, 109,000 decrease. Economic development, 435,000, and prosecuting attorney, 320,000. And it was explained as the grant for family violence and sexual assault being moved from OED to the prosecutor. I just wanted to ask if the grant will primarily have all the same requirements, eligibility, and has there been any outreach to stakeholders and community on what this change might mean?
I don't know if I can answer that question, but to the first part about it moving from OED to prosecuting attorney's office, I think that was triggered, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, through the council's budgetary actions. It was placed in OED, which it doesn't fit in OED, it fits in prosecuting attorney's office, so we just corrected that. As far as some of the other details, I wouldn't know if we're the right people to answer that. Maybe YWCA is. But if somebody else in this room can, they'll come up and answer it. But for me, I'm not able to address it.
I'm not sure too, and we'll learn from OED later. I thought the change from last year was something new, like additional monies. It wasn't about the monies that was in OED. So, but we'll look at it and we'll follow up at OED.
Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to the mayor's actual budget. We'll now begin our review of the budget details. As we call up each department in the order listed on the posted agenda, I would like to allow each department to provide a brief overview Then we'll entertain questions regarding the department's budget and operation synopsis submittal, followed by questions relating to the operating budget details taken in order of division.
Mine's spring chicken.
Okay, Reiko, looks like you're answering all the questions.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, council members. Rico Matsuyama, Office of the Mayor. So our budget is actually declining this year. So we're requesting fiscal 27 budget of just over $4 million, which is a decrease of about 1%, primarily due to reductions in salary and wages and benefits and corresponding benefits. We did have a little bit of change in just movement, like redistribution of funds, and it was mainly in boards and commissions, and it was to fund advertising for charter ballot questions, and that is basically the changes from prior year. We are also short funding a position in the mayor's office that we don't intend to fill for the first 5 months of this administration.
Councilmember Cowden, your mic.
So thank you for your detailed description in here, and I read through the detail in the book here, the budget. So it seems like there's a number of positions in the mayor's office that maybe really are in public works, or they're in IT, or they're scattered around, right? Can you estimate how many positions the mayor's office has in the various departments?
I'd say there's about 5 or 6.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head.
Okay.
And you're correct. They are like executive assistants to the mayor, but they're embedded in the different departments. They report to like those department heads. Yeah.
They report to both, right? They're in the mayor's office because it's his way to be helping public works.
Correct.
Or having deep involvement in that. On the operational highlights, we're about ready to open our early childhood center and this whole new building, right? That's going to be this summer?
Yeah, so the concession bid is, I think it just closed actually, so we're reviewing proposals.
So I'm seeing under operational highlights in the first paragraph that the Pi'ikoi Youth Center decided to focus on providing infant and toddler care when I thought it was going to be preschool. Why did we make that change?
So we're still open to everything, but as we were going through the proposals and we did meetings and site visits at the location, it didn't seem that the preschool care, those providers were as interested. They have established places already, so it wasn't necessarily, and with the initiatives of the state doing the free preschools at the elementary school campuses, it appeared that the market was saturated, but the need was for sure with infant toddler. That's not to say that if we do receive concession RFP or proposals that come back, that we would eliminate them.
So with infant and toddler care, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a 1-to-4 ratio of caregivers to babies?
Yes.
I would hope that those are probably mostly workers from our own team so they can go over
I'm not sure they would be able to be counted in the ratio.
No, I know
Yeah.
they wouldn't be, but I mean that their babies, it would be good for our staff if their babies are really close. When I'm looking at that increase in that cost, I wasn't clear if the general fund is somehow paying that, or if it is a provider that is charging the parents to care for that newborn.
Yeah, so the idea is that there wouldn't be any general funds that go to the provider. The provider would get the revenue sources through the parents, let's
Okay.
say. But we hope that offering the space for free and paying for a lot of the utilities and stuff, that the cost can be minimal or reduced
Right.
for the parents.
And I see our mayor's here, and I know this is a project of yours. Do you have something you want to share on this?
No, the main goal was to create a facility where we could address some of the needs that were kind of identified through, we'll take, for example, Kauai Planning and Action Alliance, right? I mean, the resiliency project on where there's these pukas in our society that make single moms and young local families face a struggle. Childcare in general and youth services in general were a huge unmet need. So we wanted to create a facility on our campus that would, one, address those needs, but two, to breathe new life into our civic center. I mean, as beautiful and historic as it is, it's not a joyous place. So we wanted to create this community feeling, and in doing so, this project went underway. And the beautiful thing is, taking a look at lessons learned from the Adolescent Treatment and Healing Center and how restrictive it was, our main goal was to self-fund it in a large part to allow us the flexibility, which came in handy because when we started this project, childcare needs that were identified were preschools. But with the state preschool program that offers free preschools and a lot of the regulations that are applied to private sector preschools that were waived off, the unintended consequences are some of these preschools that have existed forever are now sort of very concerned about their own personal enrollment. So when we found out that there was a big concern, we took a look at, well, where are the other big unmet needs? And it was for like the little kids, like infants and
Diapers.
toddlers. And then Kauai is severely underserved in that demographic. And so, I mean, I think when all is said and done and that project is completed, it will accomplish what we've set out to accomplish, to meet these needs from young families. It'll be a safe place for our teens and youth to be able to go to after schools. And for parents, it's going to help lower the cost of living because we are bending those costs down by meeting these sectors halfway and actually bringing something to the table, which is the facility and the utilities itself.
So I support the vibrance of this area by embracing our kids, and it helps them to feel, it's almost like what KPAL is to the police. Is Kaua Foundation somebody that might be, I saw that they lost their CrossFit location.
We're considering them all at this point, yeah.
Okay, well, I just, that was infant toddler, so you answered the question. It's not like the taxpayers are paying a 1-to-4 ratio. It's still going to the parents, and hopefully they get some sort of support through social services or whatever is needed that way. So, thank you on that, and I just, since you're right here, I want to say thank you for designing a budget that is very conscious of the handoff, so that, you know, all these amazing projects that are underway are going to be largely completed and ready to be handed to the next group. So I was very pleased in general with the budget.
Yeah, we work backwards, and we have a wonderful team, and the last thing we wanted to do was rush towards the end of our term to start something and really sort of shackle the next administration to expending a lot of time and resources into something that, you know, they may or may not be as married to as we would. So we tried to get everything done up front, and we have a tremendous team. A lot of them work behind the scenes, you know, people like Keith Perry, Michael Contreras, Todd Ozaki, Kelly Oku, you know, Bryson, and I can go on and on and on. And for the folks that I left out, I apologize. But we really reshifted the organization of the county to be able to be project focused and completion focused and on time and on budget, which has posed to be challenging at times. Case in point, New Malu Bridge.
Thank you.
Councilmember Quilly.
Yeah, along the lines of the Pi'ikoi Center, Youth Center, it's listing KPAL here, right? So KPAL has a facility being built by the stadium, right? So I don't know if that's a gym or whatever. And then potentially, I guess it's out in the future, they're going to have space at Mahelona in the master plan. It had space already, but it's more storage now or whatever. So potentially they can have more space there too. With I see KPAL as not just another organization in the community, but kind of a county organization because it's directly tied to our police. So I think it's really important we support it however we can, and I love what you guys are doing. With these investments and advancements, will we then be moving out of the Philippine Cultural Center where we are now spending a significant amount of money for rent?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the intention, is to phase out of the Filipino Cultural Center.
And then I'm not sure
Community Center.
where in the where I thought I saw it, but there's a mention of a new position, right? Or kind of it's not necessarily new. I think it was new last time. What was it, like a coordinator or?
Our early
Oh,
childhood.
early childhood coordinator. And so that person's already working and they're helping.
Correct.
So that when the thing opens, and when are we anticipating that it's going to be POW and open? Or
I have PTSD from New Malu Bridge, and I've had to go back to that community 2 or 3 times to apologize to everybody face to face. And so, out of an abundance of caution,
hopefully with the
I will say that hopefully before we all exit stage left, there will be children running around there. But I know that the whole team has been just grinding away to meet those deadlines. But like I said, sometimes there's unforeseen circumstances that are both, you know, within our control, but a lot of them outside of our control. So I do not want to give a date. And that's not because we're not transparent. It's because,
Totally
oh my gosh, dates like scare me. Absolutely.
And I love what you said about breathe new life into the Civic Center, because it'll matter
Oh,
to
absolutely.
all of us, even over
Yeah.
here.
And can you imagine if you're a young mom that works in this area, and whether you live in Kikaha or Ke'e, time with your child coming in is quality time. Traveling back with your child is quality time. But in times of disasters, there's nothing more comforting than knowing that your child is a stone's throw away from you. So we really think that it's going to be a service that we provide that is going to be greatly appreciated.
Oh, one other quick thing, because I heard it from a constituent. I mean, obviously, it's only so big and it can only serve so many. But and I thought I answered it, and I thought I'm not sure, but I think the intent is to help our employees or people working here at the county civic center. But if there was space, they would open to others working in the area. Was that the correct answer?
Well, we got our early childhood educational specialist. Her name is Natasha. I'm gonna eventually let her answer that question
And it could be
because
part of
again, what comes out of my mouth, hard to take back sometimes. I hope you guys all forgive me.
I did say I wasn't sure, so
Me too.
wasn't committing anything. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cowden.
Yeah, there's just
Follow-up.
a little follow-up, especially on the grinding away. When we're done with the building, is the half pipe gonna go back up?
I don't know. I hope so, because that was kind of like symbolism for me in my youth growing up and being a feral kid that had like no place to go. Always felt that government didn't care about us, and putting that little half pipe there and all the skate stuff, we're telling those kids, the ones that when I look at, I see myself looking back when I was their age, that, hey, we care about you and we want to create these safe places for you where you feel like you belong. But I cannot make that commitment. It depends holistically on how the programming is going to work, especially when you have really young kids. But we are grinding away at other skate parks to meet those needs as well. But like in a perfect world, if I had another term, you bet your bottom dollar there'd be a whole bunch of half pipes and skate stuff around the campus somewhere, because these kids, they just need a place, and they gotta have that feeling that government cares about them too.
Yeah, I would say it helps them to feel respected. That's
Absolutely.
a population that I've had a high focus on earlier.
Absolutely.
And I just want to acknowledge when we talk about unintended consequences or just moving goalposts, because when this vision began, I remember that was, we didn't have the emphasis on state-funded preschool.
Mm-hmm.
So we got underway on this, and then that happened.
Yep.
And so if people are asking why, well, there's a duality in how we do things. I'm sure no matter what, we'll find a good way to support our youth in building there.
Yep.
Council Chair Raposo.
I just have one question, and I think I know the CIP coordinator, right on the second, right after your salaries, there's an asterisk.
Oh, yeah.
It's a $1. Is that a position that you're using for a contract position? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's a warm body, but he's funded through separate sources, whether it be CIP or other funding, grant funded sources.
I looked at my notes, and that was my question to the chair. I did have one other question, though, in lines with Councilmember Cowden's question earlier about the positions that have E in front of them. I did notice the one position near the bottom, E9051. It seems extraordinarily high compared to all the others. I was just wondering what's the function of that position.
That position basically operates as the deputy managing director.
And then, what did he?
Which one is that?
It's the,
E9051 Program Admin Officer 2, page 3, the bottom. And basically, it may be high because the current occupant is a senior type person.
I mean,
Oh, that's just what the salary resolution calls for that position.
no, it's not included in the salary resol. It's, yeah,
Just your prerogative.
our discretion.
Yeah, your discretion. Okay,
Is that in place now?
Correct.
thank you.
Any other questions from the members on the mayor's budget? If not, we're
Chair,
gonna
could I
move
have
on.
just a moment of personal privilege at
Yep.
your discretion? I just, this may be, may or may not be the last time I get to address you during this budget deliberations, but I want to tell you folks thank you very, very much, because what you've been able to accomplish, quite frankly, has been monumental. You folks have taken our tax policy and reshifted the burden off of the backs of our local people and redistributed onto non-residents, which is huge. You folks have been a part for the first time to have insurance premiums go down when nationally, for everybody under the sun, insurance companies are either pulling out of the market or increasing premiums to the point where people can't even pay their bills. You folks have helped create a housing development fund that went from 0 to anywhere from 14 to 20 million, and the visitor industry here on this island can proudly say, when people yell at them, that we're the single largest contributor to housing, whether it's affordable, workforce, or market. And you folks have been able to do this through COVID-19, through natural disasters, through global uncertainty, through supply chain disruptions, cost escalations, growing expectations from constituents, and every single challenge thrown under the sun. And it's really been an honor and a privilege to have been working with a council like this, that we don't always have to agree. You folks have kept us sharp. You folks have kept us accountable. And yet at the end of the day, when the work needs to be done, we find a way to put aside our differences and move this island forward. And Chair, and to the members of this council and past councils, from the bottom of my heart and our entire administration, we want to thank you, and we want to thank Council Services, and we want to thank the people of Kauai and Niihau for entrusting us and for helping us to get through hard times. That includes the general public, everybody. Everybody had a hand in moving this island forward. So it's been an honor, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add, because I think we appreciate the compliments, and, you know, a lot of the ability of us now to move money or have money to move into housing was from a very bold, and I'll say it, a very bold bill that was dropped last, what was that, 2 years ago at this time by Councilmember DeCosta, who, I don't know if anyone else would have had the courage to do that, because it was such a controversial move that really upset the hotel, resort, and TVR community. And it was only after a lot of discussion and understanding that like you, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you brought it up and you said they are the largest contributor to housing as it currently stands as far as the dollars. So I just wanted the public to understand, it wasn't this council here, it was a lot of the council members here, but it was a very controversial move that was done. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, Councilmember DeCosta gets that credit, because had not that bill been dropped, or the property tax rate been dropped at the decision-making process of this budget process, we would not have had that additional $15 or $17 million that was generated. So, but I appreciate you recognizing that and making that comments.
I would add one thing on that particular item. The folks at Real Property Tax and Finance, over the years up to that point, in working with us, different councils, last few councils, on figuring out the whole tiering system, which made the mechanism. And I know when we originally were working on it, we had to be very clear. We're just working on the potential process. We're not necessarily saying anyone's using it in any particular way. But the fact that we even had the tiers is what kind of made it possible. And Real Property Tax worked a lot on that, I know, even with me personally. So thank you to people like Steve and the whole team from before, and you as well.
I have to follow up on that one. I appreciate all the benefit that happened out of that, but I also have the real pain of seeing where Zone 2 and Zone 5, those tiers are incredibly painful, because any house is pretty much in the highest tier in those areas. And so that also, it's not just non-resident owners from somewhere else, it's our market rate rentals. And so somehow I'm hoping that we can still fix that, because for the people who work for a living and then there's 5 or 6 working adults in the same house to pay that $6,000 or $7,000 a month rent rate or more, it is incredible. So we have almost 3 separate economies on this island, and I would say from north of Anahola, not including Anahola to the rest of the end of the island, least paid people and the highest property values. So they also are carrying a little bit of that burden, and that's the difficulty that we have when we have such dynamic changes across our island. So, but the big broad brushstroke is we just approved to buy another piece of land right here in Lihue, and hopefully that we are able to really work to address our housing problem.
Okay, anything else for the mayor's office? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the youth work program, which is unchanged. Any questions on the youth work program? If not, we'll move on to boards and commissions. And Ellen, maybe if you want to just give us a quick overview, but I know it was in the mayor's presentation too.
Good morning, Ellen Chang, Boards and Commission Administrator. We're just a very small little sliver. Basically, the Office of Boards and Commissions provides administrative support to 14 boards and commissions and 3 advisory committees. We have a small office of 6, which includes me. The major change, as you know, the overall instructions we got regarding the budget is to maintain our budget within whatever we had agreed to for last year, which we did pretty much. We did have some major changes, and that's because in the upcoming year we have some things that are not necessarily ordinary and that we do every year. And one of the things is that we need to, per the charter, put in a publication explaining all of the charter amendments and the legal language regarding the ballot questions. So we do that in an election year, as well as we also do a very dynamic public information campaign regarding all of the budget questions. So those are the 2 big changes. We had to shift monies around in order to fund those 2 things.
Do we have any questions for boards and commissions? Councilmember Cowden.
I do. I wanted to talk about training. It doesn't look like a very big training budget. The reason why I ask about that is when I think about the breadth of issues that you deal with, from getting Workday in and software and all this stuff, really, do we have 13 or 14 boards and commissions? I forget.
14.
14. That's a real depth of knowledge, and when I do attend board meetings, which I'm pretty often, the staff provides so much help to all this cadre of volunteers, unpaid volunteers, doing a lot of work. So I don't know how you keep up. You know, you do, but like, what kind of training do we give the different staff members to be able to grasp that, or do we have strong access to the subject matter experts in all the divisions of the county? I mean, that's part of it too, right?
Yeah, it depends on, as you said before, it's great. It's very dynamic because there's a breadth and depth of different subject matter that all of the boards and commissions deal with. Of course, we really lean heavily on the deputy county attorneys, the staff, the commissions. We lean heavily on department staff for the commissions that are connected with department staff. Each volunteer coming in is trained personally by me, one-on-one, on sunshine, what the charter requires, the code of ethics, Uniform Information Practice Act, Robert's Rules, and then if they are linked with a department, especially with the planning department, on planning commission or historic commission or open space, then in addition to my 1 to 2 hour orientation, they will have a commission-specific orientation with the department staff because they need to go through I mean, even in that orientation, there is no way that they're really going to understand the substance of like the general plan. But they have a sit down with the department head and they go through the commission specific rules and policies that inform the duties of that commission. A liquor commission will sit down with the liquor director and the administrator there and go through the rules and the laws 281 regarding liquor commission. So it just depends on each commission and what the subject matter is.
If it's 3 or 4 months into an appointment and they're kind of like, whoa, I don't understand this. I was on 3 different commissions at one time, a long time ago. Is there somebody to kind of, if they ask for help, do they get help and,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
get their homework
Absolutely.
kind of?
Yeah. I always let them know, contact me, you have any questions. If it's commission specific, especially like planning, which is so technical, they can lean on their staff, the director, the deputy director. A lot of times the applications that come up, the reports that are submitted are by planning department staff. They need to talk directly with them about questions, specific questions on the application. They have that available.
So it sounds like the needed training is largely just all folded into.
Yes.
And you don't have much turnover is my observation. So your people basically have a lot of on-the-job training as well.
Don't jinx me. We used to have quite a bit of turnover, but and I did have 2 individuals that are no longer with the office, but in consideration, it's minimal, and I've been very pleased with the staff that's there, and I'm hoping we have the 2 new ones that was added. They're very young, and so I'm hoping to build that institutional knowledge because that's so important when dealing with the commissions.
Well, I extend my gratitude to your staff because attending as many meetings as I do, it's not lost on me at all how much work goes into it.
If I can say something, it's if you look at the council services staff and all the administrative support that they provide you, it's very similar. Of course, not as in detail and to the depth, but it's very similar with the support that they provide to boards and commissions.
Councilmember Koli'i.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here and your work, you and your department division. What are the 3 advisory committees?
It's the arborists, it's the Committee on the Status of Women, and elections.
What was the first one you said?
Arborists.
Arborists.
Trees, exceptional trees.
So everything else is called a board or a commission, and these 3 are called a committee.
Correct.
Arborist, status, women's status, and election. You, in your narrative, talk about the salary commission, and there were 3 different years listed here where what was approved in the salary commission take effect on July 1st, 25, 26, and 27. And then you also mentioned the commission is procuring a comprehensive compensation and classification study. How often does the commission do this study, and at what cost approximately?
So the last time that the salary commission commissioned a study was, I believe, back in the 70s. It was called a NASH study, or excuse me, not the 70s, but the 90s. And that the salary commission took that, and their recommendation was to look at the department heads and create tiers. And so that was done, which you see some of the department heads are at a higher level of it. The impact of that is still felt today are at higher pay scales, and other department heads are at a lower pay scale. two salary commissions, one City and County of Honolulu and Maui, did a comprehensive wage and hour study. And the salary commission looked at those two studies because, quite frankly, the earlier study that was done by the Kauai County Salary Commission, the commissioners did not feel that that study was really productive, and HR department concurred. So when the two other counties came out with the studies, there was a lot of interest in it, and in looking at it, they were really pleased with Maui County's study. They felt it was extremely detailed, included cost of living, in addition to a real deep dive of review on what those positions encompassed and the responsibilities, as well as a comparative statewide between all of the counties and the state regarding salaries. So based on that, the Salary Commission actually, two salary resolutions before this had passed a motion to request a comprehensive wage and hour study. We were not able to do it, except, for the current year. We did not fund it, and so now we're seriously pursuing procuring it. We're at the end stages of being able to procure it. They are projecting being able to have it done in about 4 months, and the Salary Commission is very anxious to look at the study, and because this last salary resolution that they passed, it really was a placeholder. They didn't really, they know that there are some serious issues like the inversion situation. They know there are issues, based from the last study of the tiering. They know there are serious retention issues and recruitment issues on, in the engineering part, in the some of the department heads, and so they want to do a deep dive on that, and they want to make some significant recommendations in a salary resolution. And the plan was always they're going to do this initial salary resolution, and then they're going to return to really look seriously at some of those issues with a following salary commission, a following salary resolution. So this is the first step in them being able to do that and really getting that study and basing the resolution on that study.
So you projected 4 months. So you projected the time. Have you projected the cost, and is it in this budget?
We are not going to, it's not projected in this budget because, again, that salary resolution, when when that salary study comes, it's going to be very comprehensive, and it wouldn't be for this current budget. It would be for the following year.
Okay, thank you. And then, Chair, my last question is along the lines of the 3 advisory committee, Arborist, women, status of women, and elections, right? Has there been any community interest or any efforts by the boards and commissions to work on, because I know the Kauai County Committee on the Status of Women is tied to the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women. Well, the Hawaii State also has an LGBTQ plus commission, and I know we have people, we have at least one person from Kauai that participates on that as the secretary. But have we been looking at having a Kauai County committee, like the status of women for the LGBT, to tie to the state entity? Because I also know that KCC has a couple of representatives that are tied to the UH statewide entity.
Yes, we haven't done that yet, and it's interesting that you raise that because the newest executive director for the status of women. She's maybe about a year in office, and she's been really trying to make more efforts to have more coordination between all of the counties as well as KCC and UH Manoa, and in addition to that, tying in or doing more things in collaboration with the LGBTQ, that newest commission or committee, advisory committee that was formed.
Excellent. And to say that my time on the council is ending as I term out, and potentially in my semi-retirement, I would like to help with that.
Well, that would be lovely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions for boards and commissions? If not, we will take a 10-minute caption break now and then come back to revenue forecasting. So 10-minute caption break and we'll be back. Okay, welcome back. Next up, we have revenue forecasting. Steve, if you want to go over your revenue overview, then we'll ask questions after.
I think we're going to start with Ken. Megan will come in about slide 5, I think. We'll turn it to Ken, and I believe there's a PowerPoint presentation that will accompany this.
Ken Shimonishi, Budget Administrator again. So just a quick brief overview on the revenue, big picture stuff before we get into the main source of revenue for the county, the real property tax revenue side. So again, we've provided a presentation, a brief presentation as a handout. Again, the revenues by fund, which is covered in the budget overview, but 25.5 million increase or 6.9% across the various funds as noted. On slide 3, we provide a pie chart graphic of the revenues coming by fund. General fund at 307 roughly 0.4 million or 77% of the revenues generated from the general fund. 41.1 million roughly from the GE tax fund, or 10%. Highway fund is the next fund at roughly $19.4 million, or 4%, followed by sewer fund and solid waste. So these funds make up 98% of the revenues generated in the operating budget ordinance. If you look at the revenue from the general fund, the largest fund, by activity, you'll see that 261.4 million, or 85% of the revenues come from real property tax revenues. Another 31.2 million, or 10%, from the county transit accommodation tax bucket, and then interest earned of 5.6 million, another 2%. So that accounts for 97% of the funds generated from the general fund. With that, I'll hand it off to our real property tax people who can cover real property taxes.
Hi, Megan Shimamoto, Real Property Program Manager. Our gross projected value for fiscal year 27 is about 40.5 billion, which increased by 2.7 billion, or 7.24% from fiscal year 26. Our fiscal year 27 net taxable is about 35.5 billion, which increased of 2.547 billion, or about 7.72% from fiscal 26. Our net taxable is our gross values less our exemptions and allowance for appeals. We have a combined gross value of the owner-occupied and long-term affordable rental tax class, which increased by 467.5 million, or 4.59%. And these assessed values for the two classes exceeded the 3% cap, as they were either new uncapped properties entering the programs or the properties which had physical characteristic changes, which the added value was calculated on top of the 3% cap. That went so fast. Can you just say that again, that last couple few sentences, but slower? The combined gross values of the owner-occupied and the long-term affordable rental tax class, it increased by about 4.59%. And those assessed values for the two classes exceeded the 3% cap due to either uncapped properties entering the tax relief programs or the physical characteristic changes. And those added values were added or calculated on top of the 3% cap. Okay.
And to clarify, there were, I believe, 611 new owner-occupant or owner-occupied mixed use that came into the category. So those properties are coming in at reestablished market values at the time, which is why there's an elevation above. If everyone was stagnant and there were no changes, you would have seen a 3%. But in addition to new properties coming in, you also have existing properties doing additions, building ADUs, those kind of things that are non-capped. They'll be capped in the following year, but that the first year, that recapture of value is occurring.
Okay, and do we have a sense of how many new buildings, new houses or buildings were built? Like how many just new inventory entered the market, like got finished? Do we look at that?
Specifically for the owner-occupied and owner-occupied?
Just into the inventory on the island? No, okay.
So the most growth in parcel count were from the non-owner occupied residential tax class and the vacation rental tax class. Non-owner occupied increased by 83 and the vacation rental increased by 109. I would like to clarify that the 109 new properties are not illegal or unpermitted structures which are popping up. They come from either new construction or conversion of residences or condos within the VDA. The owner-occupied tax class was reduced by 1,070 parcels, but most of them went into a newly created long-term affordable rental tax class, which has 1,119 parcels. For the average property value, the increases ranged from 2.57% for our conservation tax class to 8.56% for a vacation rental tax class.
Maybe we'll go through the presentation.
Okay.
And then we'll take the questions. Just remember the page number. Okay. Note the question.
Got it.
Okay, slide 6 are for our appeals. The total appeal count for fiscal year 27 is 538, increasing by 151 appeals and $145 million. Even though the appeals increased from fiscal year 26, it is still much lower than our fiscal year 25, which we had 1,335 appeals totaling $744.8 million. The total $510.3 million contested value is only about 1.26% of the gross value and 1.43% of the net taxable values, which is well under the 2% expected appeal level set forth by IAA. Likewise, the 538 appeal count is only 1.55% of the total number of taxable parcels of 34,629. The top 3 appeal increases were for the hotel resort tax class, which increased by 113 appeals, the non-owner occupied residential, which increased by 54 appeals, and the vacation rental tax class, which increased by 43. On the flip side, the top 3 appeal decreases were agriculture, which decreased by 82, conservation decreasing by 4, and industrial by 3.
Moving on to slide 7. Although the net taxable value, which are after appeals, increased by 7.72%, the projected property taxes for fiscal 27 increased slightly more at 8.6%. This is due to proportional increases in those tax classes which are subject to the higher tax rates. The total projected real property tax revenue increase is estimated at $20.78 million. Bringing the total to $261,836,729, and that's before applying the home preservation limit or very low income tax credits. Excluding the changes to the owner-occupied and long-term affordable rental tax classes, which were previously combined in fiscal 26, the largest tax increases were to the vacation rental class, 11.7%, and the non-owner occupied residential class at 10.2%. Slide 8 illustrates the balance, or sometimes imbalance, depending on how you're looking at it, between the assessed value and the tax revenues. The bars represent the net taxable values, where the red dots on this chart represent the proportional taxes as a percentage paid by each class, and we're comparing it year over year, fiscal 26 to fiscal 27. The non-owner occupied residential class represents our largest concentration in net taxable value, with 27.4% of our total tax base. This is followed by the owner-occupied tax class at 23.7% of our tax base. However, taxes are predominantly garnered from three classes: vacation rental, which is slightly over 30%, non-owner occupied residential at 26.7%, and hotel and resort at 19.2%. Collectively, these three tax classes bring in about 76% of our total real property taxes, though they only account for about 55% of our assessment base. Should note, though, that these charts are only showing the net taxable values, not the actual market values, because tax classifications such as owner-occupied mixed use, long-term affordable rental, and agricultural all benefit from various tax relief measures, including assessment caps, exemptions, and ag dedications. For instance, the market value properties in the owner-occupied class is actually $13 billion, which equates to a discount of about $6.56 billion, or if you look at an effective tax rate, which would be taking the taxes garnered from this class divided by the gross values or the market values, the effective tax rate would be about $1.28 for this class.
Explain that again.
So the values that are posted here are net taxable values. So the cap and exemptions have already been taken into account, reducing that.
This is owner-occupied.
Correct. So we're talking the owner-occupied, and we were to release the caps, release the exemptions, and put them at their market value. If we were to take the same level of taxes that they're paying today with all those tax relief measures, the actual tax, we have a stated tax rate of $259. The actual tax rate or effective tax rate, if we were to do the same on gross values at market, would be about $1.28. Okay. For agriculture, the market value is about $3.05 billion, which equates to discounts for the ag dedications in that class. Primarily, there are some exemptions as well, but primarily ag dedications of about $1.2 billion. And if we were to take the effective tax rate for that category, instead of the 675 stated rate, would be roughly about 407. For the owner-occupied mixed use, the market value is just under $3 billion, $2.95 billion, and that equates to about $1.32 billion in discounts through the caps and exemptions, and that would be an effective rate of about 279 versus the stated rate of 505. And then finally, the gross market value for the long-term affordable rental class is about $1.2 billion. This equates to about $168 million in relief, or an effective rate of $2.22 as opposed to $2.59. So those are the relationships between taxes and values.
Can you state the owner-occupied value again one more time?
Okay, so the owner-occupied value, without the tax relief measures, the market value would be roughly $13 billion.
Okay, thanks.
Can you send us a copy of that? What you were just reading?
Oh, sure. Okay. And Ken, do you have any more detailed fact sheets?
Oh, actually, it was on the next page. Page 7 of the spreadsheet. Or the previous page, I guess, yeah. Okay. With that, do we have any questions on the presentation? Councilmember Cowden.
So my questions are all surrounding.
Oh, hold on.
My questions are all surrounding non-owner occupied residential, because that collects both the long-term market rate rentals, which I would categorize as the gap people. That's people who can't qualify as low income. So it may be a police officer married to a teacher. And so they can't afford a house, and they can't get into the low-cost rentals. So they are in that non-owner occupied residential. So a little bit of background, as I stated on Wednesday, from another piece that we got really recently. Zone 1, which is the west side. I'm looking right now on page 6 on the appeals. This is by category, but we had another page that came to us. On the west side, there were 3 appeals for a total of $500,000. In Zone 2, which is Kalaheo, Lawai, Kaua, there was 60, and I can't remember offhand because I'm not looking at it, the total value. In Zone 5, which is north of Anahola to the end of the road, there were 80 appeals for a total of $87 million. So what we see is just a chronic and extreme challenge for where it doesn't fit together. Is that being looked at in any meaningful way? And do you know, can you guess how many people in that category, because we no longer separate out residential investor from just long-term rental. So do you have any guess how many of our $70 million worth of tax revenue is the people who truly have an empty second home versus a long-term market rate rental? Are we trying to track that in any way at all?
Pulling up some information because this is not on the presentation. You're coming with additional information.
I'm coming with additional information and that I got off what was in our Wednesday meeting, and I called attention to it in the Wednesday meeting. And it's absolutely in this, is that we are taxing out our gap market rate rentals. We're taxing them out of their homes in Zone 2 and Zone 5. I'm just wondering if we're looking at that in any way.
So I don't have information at hand right now on Zone 2, Zone 5. However, in terms of the tiers, we can look at the property counts by tiers. So properties that are 1.3 million or under represent about 75%, 74.64% of the inventory in that non-owner occupied residential.
Do we have that broken down by zones?
Right now, I don't think it's provided by zone.
And almost nothing is below that rate in Zone 5.
The reason I don't think we're breaking it down by zone is because we don't have tax rates by zone. We have tax rates by category. If you were to come up with the tax rates by category by zone, then it would be something to look into. But when policies are made, it's made at the category level. So having that information, while germane to you, is somewhat not important in terms of setting the universal rate, because we're doing it by category, not by zone.
So we've had that conversation last year extensively, working with the worksheets, all of that. But I just want to really call to the attention of all of us is that, even a 25-year-old public-private workforce house, those are selling for 1.4 and 1.5 million. Without they're being bought cash. And so we are basically taxing away our housing for rentals for people who are in that don't qualify for the lowest rate.
Right. So, and to that end, if something's selling for 1.4, 1.5 million, they are paying the lowest tier up to the 1.3. So it's only that portion that's above the 1.3 that they kick up to the 605 rate, which formerly was the rate for the entire category.
That's correct, but that's the very bottom of the tiers of houses. You know, you can have a very, very basic house, and it is high. And so I'm just wanting to really call to our attention that this is a gap that we need to be able to handle, because people don't drive the long distance to work those jobs. And it's not just about jobs. We're driving the working population out of these zones. And it's a problem. And we need to fix this. I want to fix it this time.
I think sounds like you might want to send them a specific question on the zones to get the information you need.
Yeah, I can do that. And we've spent months looking at this. And I haven't been able to get any kind of effective relief. And the problem, it drives people out of the housing. So when I asked earlier with being able to get the module and Tyler Technologies to be able to do this, we need to do that.
I'm not sure what is being proposed. I mean, are you proposing tax by zone? Rates, different rates for different zones?
Yeah, I proposed that last year. I proposed different tiers per zone.
Different tax rates for different
I
zones
don't,
we have.
Different
I don't
tiers.
remember that last year.
I proposed that last year. I tried very hard
So
to
the
do
North Shore would be a lower rate in taxes than the west side?
The tier would be higher. The tier would be higher. The rate wouldn't be different. But what is a low-cost home, you know, like a very, very modest home could be a mansion in a different area. And so, or maybe a mansion's extreme, but you know, you could double the square footage and have a new house for the same rate. So we have a very disproportionate tax burden on the market rate rentals. So I either wanted to find a way to get our market rate long-term rentals back. We couldn't do that because it puts them back to the work of having to observe the leases, which was why we got rid of it in the first place. Having to sit there and look at all those leases was such a difficult problem. So if we just had a different tier for different areas, if the tier was higher, it would be more of a reflection of what those houses are. So, you know, we have $9,000 a month rentals for houses that aren't that extraordinary, and it's because of the tax.
I have a different question. I just have a different question, and this is back on page 5 on the parcel counts. I'm curious, you know, we're showing an increase of 109 TVR units. Are we synchronized with planning or with zoning, or is this if people just pay a TAT and they register for TVR, are we making sure that these are legal TVRs? Because I don't know how we could get 109 new ones when no new TVRs are allowed outside of the VDA.
I think that is the last part of the statement is the correct. These are occurring within the VDA, so we have new construction coming up in projects that are in the VDA zone, and as the new projects are complete, people are choosing to put them into vacation rentals rather than owner-occupied or even second homes some cases.
So last year we had 109 new TVR homes constructed in the VDA.
Constructed and or converted. So if you had a condominium in, say, Princeville, which is in the VDA, and it was a long-term tenant, and the long-term tenant leaves, and the owner decides to put it into vacation rental, or it's a new owner, comes in, buys it, and the long-term tenant expires, and they turn it to vacation rental, that would be another example.
Okay.
So either new construction or conversion of existing within the VDA.
But is it in your checklist to make sure they are legal TVR or non-conforming use? I mean, it couldn't be a non-conforming use. It would have to be in a VDA.
Correct. The compliance section is still falling on planning to say cease and desist if something were to happen outside the VDA where they try to put it into vacation rental. For us,
No, but I guess my question is, how would planning know? Do you guys communicate when somebody applies for a TVR designation? Are we cross-checking with planning to make sure that they are eligible to be a TVR?
Our office, we we don't necessarily check with planning.
Yeah, that's, because when you go out, it says for
on
tax
whether-
only, right? It says for tax use only, not necessarily for zoning or something like that. So is it possible to get a list of the 109? Not now, but is that something we can send over as a request?
Yes.
I have a follow-up on that.
Okay, I'll write it down on my list. Thank you.
I have a follow-up on,
Councilmember Cowden.
I have a follow-up on that. I know of a parcel in Anahola that doesn't really have a house. I would say they have some violations on it, but they certainly aren't a vacation rental. And that has been converted to, it's an ag parcel, it's been converted to a TVR when it's clearly not a TVR, you know, so I just curious how those choices are made too. It's I would say a punitive tax, not arguing maybe they don't deserve it or not, but it's not a vacation rental and it is an ag parcel without a housing structure on it. And so I just wonder how those choices are made also.
Just to clarify, it's not a residential structure, but it's being used as TVR? So,
It's not at all, not a question.
okay, so, but you're saying it's classed as TVR?
It's being charged, it's being taxed as TVR.
Are they appealing it?
Yes, and I had a very strong conversation with those people yesterday. I've gone out there and I've looked at the property. I mean, they're trying to go to court, but I just wondering, like when I went out and looked, and I just looked on the sheet, because they didn't even bring that issue up. I looked at the sheet and I went, well, you're not a TVR. And that's been reclassified, I would guess, within the last couple of years, because I don't think they've owned it very long. So it's just not always, I think it can be used as a form of a punishment or a, you know, it's definitely not a TVR.
Our office wouldn't assign the parcel of vacation rental tax class if we didn't have evidence. So we check online.
I can work with you, I can do that individually, because I don't want to get lost in that particular thing, but I did go out and look for the planning violations that they had.
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about the individual parcel here, but send them the info over, send them the TMK number, or the address, or what.
Yeah.
And we can get it straightened out.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they can get it straightened out. Councilmember Cooley.
Okay. Just to confirm, because I want to do further analysis later, but we have this Exhibit 1, right, that just gives us the summary of all the different categories and the revenue by class, the tax revenue, the tax rate. What's not in here is the fiscal year 27 parcel count and perhaps the plus or minus. But I can just take that from your real property taxes chart here, and those are the same exact numbers that would tie to, because this is adding up to 2.8 million, right? So I can just do that and take that there. Okay.
And I believe also when the budget was submit, you should have also gotten a copy of the comprehensive spreadsheet where you can
and I
again,
can
change tiers, change rates, and
we have this by in Excel also.
yeah.
So-
And if you look at the tabs, as you go over on the tabs, you'll see more details on if you
Okay.
wanted the parcel counts or you wanted more breakdowns,
Yeah.
it would be that on the tabs.
The thing I wanted to do, which kind of has to do with some of the questions from even earlier today, the broader questions was, and I don't know if it's even possible because I don't know that you can tell one versus the other. We were trying to know of this 20.8 million increase in real property taxes, how much of it came from higher assessed values, how much of it came from new inventory, and how much of it came from higher rates because we added the tiers. I mean, obviously one happens on top of the other, so you don't know if it's because of that or because of this necessarily, because why would you have that separate data, right? And I know committee chair said that the majority of it is likely from the higher assessed values. But because we did these tiers and tax changes, it would be good to know how much that actually helped in the sense of growing revenues for particulars like housing. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to relook at this, maybe not me because I won't be on the next council, but for future, if the GET ends, there's a lot of expenditures that will have to continue. So the potential for really looking at revenue and trying to understand what actually happened when we move these levers so that, we know in the future what we can do.
Bottom line is, it's a very dynamic situation with multiple things going on in terms of value changes, new construction, and changes within classes. One property can move to a different class, another one can move into the old class. So it's not a snapshot of the same set of properties year after year. They're increasing. When CPRs get canceled, they can actually potentially decrease in count. And classification is, again, on an annual basis, so that can change from year to year too. So you're right, it's very difficult to point a finger to one lever to say, yeah, this is how much of it is based on new construction, how much of it is based on growth, and how much of it is based on, changes in classification.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the members? If not, you guys want to move on to the detail revenue worksheet?
I had one other one,
okay.
and
Go
it's
ahead.
more
Councilmember
something I
Cooley.
could follow up with later too. But in the past, there's this master spreadsheet that we worked with to play with numbers and stuff like that, and look at tiers and stuff like that. So obviously, between now and the next few months before decision making in May, that will be available from you guys again.
I thought it was hard.
you and perhaps crunch through some stuff.
I thought it was actually sent over with the budget, to be honest. So
Yeah. Not just having it, but maybe if, when I'm working with it, if I wanted to have your support,
Oh, for sure.
obviously that'd be available. We have all this time now. Thank you.
Any further questions on this revenue overview? This is like the bulk of our income. We'll go through this other spreadsheet page by page if we want, and it's all of our other revenue sources.
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, so we'll move on.
I think it'll come up if we're going through this. So I'll wait.
And I guess the easiest way is we'll just go page by page, and if anybody has a question on it, on any of the revenue sources or what it is or why any variance, then we'll look at it.
Yeah. So Chair, we do have the variance analysis from staff, right?
Yeah.
So if I haven't necessarily had a chance to take that and tie it to this, I may just want to ask it off of that. So I think I only have one question. But yeah, go through it, or a couple. I'll try to just tie it as we go.
I think it goes, it pretty much goes, I think, hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just start with general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, it does.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it goes hand in hand, so.
Thank you.
Any questions on the first page of the detail? It goes from real property taxes down to licenses.
So, I do have a
Councilmember
question.
Cotton?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at these delinquent real property numbers, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just trying to understand what the difference is from each of those rows.
Well, it's blank. There's no value.
Oh, yeah, there's no value. Well, oh, yeah, there's no value. Okay, never mind. I was looking at that right there. Okay, never mind.
Any other questions on the first page? want to go too fast for you, Councilor Kuli. I see you looking at your notes.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the next page. We're on page 2. Starts with licenses. We're still on licenses and goes down to indirect costs.
I'm okay.
I'm still going through mine
Okay.
here. Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. We're on page 3.
I guess I had a quick one maybe.
Councilor Kuli.
I'm looking I just know it's in the highway fund, and I just know that the fund balance from previous year for fiscal 25-26 was 2.8 million, and then for 26-27 is 4.8 million, with a difference of 2 million. So was it just that we didn't spend the money that we thought we were going to spend last year, and now we're pushing it to this new year? It's a significant amount, yeah? Where would it be in here, I wonder? It's just probably the total.
Oh, you're looking at the fund balance.
In the highway fund,
Fund balance from previous year versus current budget submittal.
yeah. So it's 2.8 million for fiscal year 25-26, and 4.8 million for fiscal year 26. I'm just going off of the variance sheet.
Which page are you on? You're on,
Page, I am assuming it's in page 3, because that's the only place the highway fund is.
yeah, so that's where I am.
And then I'm on page 2 of our variance analysis. I'm sorry, I got a lot more work to do this weekend.
No, it's just a fund balance, so it's not on the revenue sheet.
Okay. So he's on another sheet.
Oh, okay, so it's basically gonna go in with
Oh,
our,
I see.
our,
I see where he is.
it'll add to our revenues for next year's use, but it wouldn't be on here. Okay. For services. Okay. I'm good, you can keep moving.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to page 4.
Okay. So that's, I'm looking at what he was just looking at, so we see for GET,
Now it gets out of order a little bit.
okay.
I had a question about liquor fund.
Okay. Yep, that's on page 4.
So in liquor fund, not in our analysis, variance analysis, or this, do I see, we're projecting from 1.4 million to 1.5 million, so increase of 137,249. I'm just wondering, is that from a number of new licenses anticipated, or do we know? Or just higher rates, or what's?
Right, so the liquor fund basically will charge the required revenue in order to support the budget. So whatever their budget is, I believe the formula is 120% is what they charge out to get that recovery. And that's how we estimated the revenue.
Oh, okay. 20% charge out. Thank you.
Any other questions on page 4?
I'm trying to look on the criminal assets. Oh, here it is. No, I don't have a question.
You had a question on criminal assets?
On page 4 is solid waste, right?
Yeah, solid waste is on there.
What is making up the increase on the sanitation from 12 million to 12.6 million? So it's over 600,000 increase. Is that anticipated new users and additional fees? Oh, we're instituting new rates too, right?
I'm sorry, so you're looking at page 4?
I think I am, because that's the only place solid waste.
Your revenue?
Solid waste fund.
So the,
Which is different from sewer fund.
So our solid waste,
Is solid waste fund and sewer fund the same thing?
no.
Separate.
Sorry.
so solid waste, we
I messed
see
up.
a variance of an increase in 2 million in what
Sorry.
services did. So we had a $2 million.
Okay, we're on solid waste. Councilmember Cotton. Yep, go ahead.
So on our variance report here, we're showing a $2 million increase in revenue.
We show, for solid waste disposal fund, we show an increase of 147,000 in revenue. We also show a loss of interest, 790,000.
Oh, okay.
Page 3 on the there.
And we show increased contribution from the general fund to subsidize the solid waste fund of 2.8 million, an additional 2.8 million.
Okay, all right. See that there.
Any other questions on page 4? Now we can move on to page 5. Page 5 has the sewer fund, if you had a
Okay.
question on that one.
Let anybody go with
Councilmember
housing
Koli'i.
first. Yeah, so then my question just basically was the increase for sewer department, I'm not seeing it.
The residential charges,
Sanitation line item from 12 million to 12.67 million, so over 600,000. Wondering if that's coming from, it's a lot of charge for services here, right? So it's probably in there. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, thank you. 616,933. Thank you. Got it. Moving on.
any other questions on sewer fund or this page?
So next is golf fund, right?
Yeah. Golf fund is on page 5, on the page we're on.
Yeah. So the 1.4 million that remains, same level from last budget to this budget, is that actually fees collected, or is that subsidy from the general fund?
That 1.4 is fees, estimated fees collected. The subsidy from the general fund, the total is 1.9, about almost 2 million.
Okay, so we actually get more subsidy than we do fees. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on page 5? Not, we'll move on to page 6. Any questions on page 6? Or any questions on anything we missed? I know we went through it kind of fast. I don't want anyone to feel like we missed the question they had.
I just have a real
Yep.
basic question.
Councilmember Cowden?
When I'm looking at the housing fund, it looks like, am I reading this correctly? We're basically getting paid what we're supposed to be getting paid. We don't have a lot of delinquencies or people not making their payments, right? They're paying their rents. Looks like everybody's paid.
Correct. There is a vacancy, I think, or some kind of factor that the housing agency uses in determining the rent revenue. And if you look in the back of the operating budget, there's the consolidated worksheets from housing, which provides greater detail on their revenue line items, and it'll show you what that allowance that they're using for that, not realizing 100% of revenue.
Okay, because what was curious for me on that is I know when a unit opens up, it doesn't typically refill very quickly because we have lists. So they have to go through the list. Sometimes it might take 3 or 4 months to actually re-rent something. So but I guess that's not a delinquency. But there'll be gaps, and it looks like for the most part, people are paying their rent.
I would assume so, but I would ask that you pose that question to the housing agency.
Okay. So I could just send that over in a written thing, right?
Can I jump back?
Yep.
Now that I look at all the columns.
Yep.
On the,
Just state what page you're on to.
on page 5, in the golf fund, the charges for services, so the line item is actually green and locker fees. So the columns show fiscal year 23, 24, 25, and then it says budget 26, budget 27. In 23, it was 1.2 million, and then to 24, it went up to 1.4. So maybe there was a fee increase there. But then it's relatively flat just flat. So I'm wondering if this is what we're budgeting and forecasting is revenue. Do we have data when the year is POW, even if it's a year later or 6 months later, on what the actual collections were for green and locker fees?
You can see the fiscal year 23, 24, and 25 actual.
Those are actuals?
Yeah.
So 24 and 25 were exactly the same?
Oh, maybe it was.
That seems odd.
Yeah, there's no way.
I can double check that.
To the dollar?
Oh.
No? I don't think so. Anyway, I just want to have a sense of that and then maybe do some kind of comparison to what the subsidy is each year, so side by side. I'll follow up. Thank you. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the members on this? Or on revenue? If not, we're going to move on to HR, which is our final department for today. Okay, with that, thank you, Ken. Thanks for all the
Thank you, Ken.
spreadsheets. Thanks for being able to consolidate everything into something we can understand somewhat. With that, thank you. And next up, we have HR and vacancy report. You could go through the vacancies with each department
Yeah,
also.
with each department.
Yeah.
Yes. I need the weekend. Okay, where is the department?
You're a pro, you can do it, Janine. I don't,
We can take a recess.
we can take a quick recess if, or I don't think we're gonna do the entire vacancy report today. I think
No.
we'll probably do the vacancy report as the different departments come up. We'll ask those questions. But
As long as nothing was changed.
you think you're able to just do the overview, or you want us to recess and wait? Oh,
She's got it, okay.
We're done.
okay, HR is up. If you want to give us just a quick overview, and then we'll ask some detailed questions on the budget.
Sure. Annette Anderson, Director of Human Resources. Basically, we have 4 areas of increase that we've included in our exception request. The first one is the vacation credit payout, and that's increase of $130,000. Still huffing and puffing. And that's because in the change of administration, a number of the appointees probably will have vacation payout. And clearly it's for multiple departments, it's not just for HR. The second one is the internship increase of $50,000, and that's to be able to maintain the minimum wage, actually pay $1 more, and then expand the number of highly qualified interns. The third one is regular salaries. As it's zero funded, it would be a new position for payroll, and we expect Department of Water to be able to fund it. The rest of adjustments that were, one more. There was an increase to the IT SBITA account by $65,000, and that's for a subscription called Workday Success Plan, and it will be used as a resource to improve Workday's functionality for the end users and reduce our need for the implementer Accenture that we use. Minor other operational adjustments. And then we went through on the synopsis various highlights that have taken place, and I can elaborate if you'd like me to on those.
I think we read it, so
I have a question.
I have a Council Chair proposal first, and Councilmember Cowden.
Thank you for being here. The SBITA, you said you're increasing that, but I noticed year to date you're at 592,000, and the mayor's request is for 463. Was there a lump sum procurement that we did that's not going to recur? Is that why it's a significant decrease from where we at year to date? So we haven't even finished out the year.
So, are you asking about the 65,000 or?
No, I'm asking for that line IT arrangement, which is the SBITA, that includes the annual subscription and maintenance and all of that. Year to date for that line item, you're at 592,000, and we're not, we're halfway. But the request is for 463. So, you're budgeted at 596. So it looks like you're probably going to run out of money, and you're cutting down the requests for next year. So, I'm actually here to say if you need more money, you need to let us know.
Okay, you can answer.
Because you're going to go over budget, and you're asking for less.
Okay, I'm going to have Janine speak to that.
Hi, Janine Raposo, HR Manager. So when we pay for the Workday subscription, we pay it at the front end, and that's where that large amount is already encumbered.
Okay. Yeah, but that's still so you'll do the same next fiscal year?
Yes.
So if we do everything the same, you're not going to have enough money, is what I'm saying.
I see that. I'm not sure what we took out. Peter, do you know?
Hi,
Hi, Chita Pashan, accountant from HR. I believe the changes was from the Accenture, that is, they're planning to use more on Workday now, and Accenture is like, we're gonna use more on the CIP side, whatever money we have left.
Okay, I don't know how that works because we just gonna transfer them. I don't know how you're gonna have the money in the account.
Perhaps you can send the question over.
Okay.
I think that would be better.
All right. Thank you.
Apologies, our HRMS expert is on the main line and could not be here today, but he handles most of that stuff, and so that's, I think.
I just wanted, I'm basically trying to make sure you guys have what you need.
No, it's a good question. Thank you for it.
Councilmember Cowden, then Councilmember Kuali'i.
I just, minimum wage, I don't hardly know anybody who gets minimum wage. Is that $11.11?
No, it's gone up to 16 as of January 1st.
And we pay 17.
And
For the interns, but we
Okay.
still pay 16 for some of the summer hires for the summer fund program.
And so are we having success attracting people at that rate?
Our internship program has definitely spiked from last year.
In a good way?
In a good way, yes.
Good way.
Yes.
That-
So we've gotten a lot of interest for college students coming back. The summer fund program, because they redesigned how they run the program now with pods ever since COVID, they don't need as many workers, but they still have challenges at that level, and you might want to ask Parks that question when they come up.
Okay, so my main thing was I was hoping we weren't paying them $12 an hour. So $17 an hour is still low, but it's definitely better.
Councilmember, follow-up question on that? No. Councilmember Kuali'i, then Councilmember
My
Carvalho.
question was along those lines also. So you basically have a pot, and you're increasing it by 50,000 because you have this high-quality internship program that's been successful, and you foresee using it more.
Yes, actually, I think Councilmember Bulasan added some money last year, and we actually was able to expand from 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And aside from that, the minimum wage went up. We have departments now that are really doing a really good job with actually working with our interns. We actually have interns coming back to work for us. So that is the hope, that we can attract even more, place them into the various departments, and then when they finally graduate, they might come back to us. Our internship program, also speaking of minimum wage, if they do return to us, it goes $17, $18, $19. So it's not like they're going to still stay at 17 every year. So if they return to us the next summer, we do increase their amount.
Would you have, or would you be able to have, like just a summary report on how it went last year or the year before?
Yeah, we do have a report.
Okay, maybe if you could share that. The only other question I think was, well, one of them was along the lines of the new position, zero funded payroll specialist. And in the narrative, it says you would be requesting funding, and then you just said you expect the Department of Water to be able to fund. So are you trying to get this done for July 1st? And so you're approaching Department of Water? Or?
So in answer to your question, I have asked Mr. Tate a number of times if he would agree. I believe it took him some time to get back to me on email. His email did indicate that it would be presented to the Board of Water. Their budget schedule is a little bit later than ours here. And I also think that he talked to others in HR and somewhat indicated, I don't want to speak for him, but somewhat indicated that he thought it would occur.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carvalho.
Yeah, just a quick one on the consultant services with first responder. It went back to 319.
I'm sorry, what are you looking at?
Consultant services, employee assistance for the first responder.
No, consultant services.
Page 44. Oh, not 44.
Consultant services, so there's like a significant, and you're looking at employee assistance, then there's third-party administrators, which is a big chunk of the monies. What? Okay, what about?
So we added that in because we're going to also focus on giving more employee assistance to our first responders, like the fire and police.
So that's the whole,
Yeah, so there's regular employee assistance for all employees, 6 sessions a year, but we also wanted to focus more on the first responders. So fire did come to us and see whether or not we could add that into
that was another question.
Councilmember Cooley.
So it might be too soon to tell because you just started on January 1st, a few months ago, the pilot sick leave buyback program. How is that going?
It's going extremely well. As you indicated, we're still in the first quarter, so it will end March 31st. Then the employees have 30 days thereafter, so basically till the end of April to request to participate. But we did run numbers as to how many people are eligible, and not quite, but almost double. And that is, I think a good sign that we would hope that a lot of people are going to participate and get the $300. And we did comparisons from 12/31/25 versus what we have so far through March. And then we even went back to do a comparison of the same period of January to March in 2025. And both showed that extreme a lot more people are eligible and did not take as much sick leave as in those comparison quarters. So we think it'll be good. But obviously, it's still a pilot, and we have to, look at it for more than just one quarter.
Right. Then you mentioned as a challenge addressing and remedying errors made by workers and improving managers during the time entry process. That has resulted in overpayment and underpayment, which then need to be remedied. Obviously, you're trying to address mistakes in the first place with improvements with the workday system. But I'm curious as to what kind of dollar amounts have been involved and how long is it taking to make corrections, and how are you finding the mistakes, and whether employees are being asked to do self-reporting?
So the mistakes are generally found through the auditing process, or for instance, with water, when our payroll folks meet with the time entry people at water, some of the discussions show that they weren't doing things correctly, or the employees were not doing things correctly, or they didn't audit before it got over to central payroll. When that occurs, as you may know, we're obligated under HRS to collect back, even if, let's say, it wasn't an employee's fault, it could be something else. So we're obligated to collect back, and the HRS provides different scenarios for how much you can collect back. And so basically what happens is there's a meeting with the employee, this is assuming there's been overpayment, and working out a repayment plan with the employee so that we can collect back. And then the other side of the coin is if there had been an underpayment, obviously we would be paying the employee for the amount that was underpaid. But that's part of our overall goal of having the additional payroll person, so we can nip it in the bud, and also so that we are pretty much assured that the kind of errors that we have seen will not happen. And it also will involve training. Central Payroll right now does a whole lot of training when they pick up the fact that mistakes are being made, whether that be with employees or usually employees, and then another session with the managers, so that people really understand how it works, because it is very complicated. because of the collective bargaining agreement, especially for UPW, the blue collar. There's a lot of little monies here and there that you have to understand how it works, so it is complicated.
Right. And I see you're fully staffed, so congratulations. No vacancies.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the members on HR? This is our last department for today. I want to thank you. And again, just want to reiterate thanking the Office of the Mayor, Finance and Human Resources for your presentations. At this time, I would like to recess the departmental budget reviews. We'll reconvene at 9 a.m. on Monday, March 30th, 2026, where we will hear from Department of Public Works on their operating and CIP budgets.